Alright, hello. I'm gonna do like a quick glance at myself, and I know I'm not at my best, so this is more of a shell video, and that pretty much means that I'm insecure for the bit, just to create something like this. Now that I'm being fed to say something that I'm in real English on the security of that is on. So pretty much I want to talk about a few of these cards and doing a segment on why I did that. So we'll start with each one. So we have the security. So when activating the 28 security, I came across like a thinking is it says remove the issue teeter as outside element and then activate security. So it's like having a line to where it's switched. So you pragmatic what is outerior. So close was the dilemma. So something is far. So then it's like it's here and then it's there. So between this fence design. So then once seen like that, then we say, oh, the irony of problems is a continuous circle of the rotation 100 of daily life. So we continue with that. And so we'd be like, wow, things are getting close. So rotation annoying. And then there's sometimes we do language. Now this is like really quick. But I was pretty mad about the lighting because yes, I was already flush and the lighting was super bad and I was at the gym. Would you be allowed to like me if it meant I had to like you back? Is kind of the teal of the outerior of what's compelling to learning how to 50-50 a conversation. Thinking that you're running your own conversation and for whatever that is worth and whatever depiction and whatever society is that done. Then we have this, which is about this and how that's on the floor. So it's just kind of awkward that's on the floor. I did have the traditional mattress that's upstairs, but I figured that I'm just going to destroy it and then create a 2x4 standing thing. And we don't really break past this thing of what you try to compel others to do that, to say so. So it's like, not using much percentages per a month budget to do that. So maybe in this other time we'll get some kind of Walmart brand for probably $100 or do a $50 do it at home build with some wood or even less. So it's that. So I was pissed today because I wasn't I was or I wasn't behind on my scope of goal. That was, I have no idea, do not remember. I really love to use note cards and later on, even for drawing, organizing, and the attempted repel of a pediatric appropriate intention extraction all the way to the point of ATF basically is how I feel about my macro field. So, and then we have real virtuals to make that possible, like the Hyper-V virtualization, something like the outerior of a... We're not going to get into stuff that we don't know because we will specialize in certain stuff. Not running in a Microsoft... Why? The person that is instigating to be a problem, I really do not consent to that. So then I forgot that was about. I guess if you called it in connection, that's not the best. I was gonna test this design of something, even though it's already there, and then I don't think that like the press on anything that I learn would be like, wow, I knew that yesterday, my boy. So I don't want to hear about something like that at the same time. I can put it up for a second. I know it looks really bad, and I'm feeling that if we have some better lights and better green plants stuff down here, then it's gonna be less humid, and then that's gonna. It was pretty much just this time for that. Any other cards? I got a whole bunch. I got like probably like 200 down here. Some good ones. What I like about data stacking cards is like you're putting this and then next thing what you intended upon becomes a bit more stacked, and then everything that you've done has been accounted and cabineted. So when going to my job and seeing the premise of stability and structure used with the cabinet, that I can see myself using that myself, except it can take something as small as a index card box that makes myself have more of an advantage than not. I'm really sorry about the lighting, and we really need to make this room more of a, what is it, Tumblr-esque, so that it can look alright. I swear, you could see this as the depiction of your science to do something to the interior of it. Look, it doesn't look so bad. I added more pictures to Darien's deals, and it was way in the corner, and it still is like a 26-foot by 26-foot room. I don't know if I've asked about 28, but for sure by what is that? Wow, I'm kind of offended to open, like, to show my space right there, even being myself. So maybe I'll switch the decor, because it's like I was just there, and then that watching that you knew that I slept there and that it actually looks good, but then it's like it'll look bad. So this false test site of what like a test house is or whatever would make me feel better about what I was doing. So that's kind of just all I was getting right there. So sometimes it feels like if I'm saying something that, like in code, if something equals to me and it's theoretically being reminded in the eye orbit of where I'm going, that the cards are not like necessarily stacked with on each other, but yes, there is a save area where I do compress the completed cards that I see that are successful and relevant to my macro economy, whatever that's worth. So that was a really good tip, and I was like, it's kind of embarrassing that I had this here as well, explaining my pediatric class here. So my interpretation of what pediatrics is that it's more based on beneficials to the Emerald server or the Python coding, because it's centered on the realism of the application to something that applies to the physical world and experience primarily to live it idealistically. It's completely different than the A to F theory on what is the priority of the commandments of the interaction of a being, or what are the possibility of those intrusions, which we'll later try to get rid of with security protocols. I've been seeing a lot of great things that you can learn on Udemy, Coursera for free about things to get that. And I'm just like, later on, we'll talk about how great. Oh, another great tip is setting the floor. Hello, hello. Setting the floor for the possibility of what could happen to you on calculus is the most likely way to know where you're going to be in the future. So that the possible of what could not have happened to me that is already set, then I already have a good speculative of who I'm going to be if I was going to say something else. Yeah, I really don't feel maybe the strength of adversary to the compelling of what something else is. But yes, if I've learned that if I have personal problems, that it's not always better to call the police, because I see that if I do say something and I say it, what is the dictionary of the appropriation of how the banister of what was not said, as that would not be what I had just said normally. I just that it was human speech. I understand that Darien, when he speaks, he is sometimes overly myself. Second person is very C sharp and uncommitted to getting committed to getting the resolve, but uncommitted to how and letting the permissive of the incorrect behavior uh, get past the layers of conversation. And then some people don't get that that is intentional, and then I continually have to be outright and firm about what I'm trying to say. And then I'm like, wow, I've said everything past all the possible legality of anything that you could possibly have done any way or else, and you still don't got an explanation. So it's just kind of absurd. So let's see. I wanted to show some certain cards. So there was a different part in the pediatrics where we talk about how we're going to use these different elements for contact. And there I was looking at what was the security, and the labeling of third party is actually very scary, because when that data gets collected, the interpretation of that data is open access, possibly. So even if it is supposed to go there, the the attempt on third party and that the second party deviation to that isn't to the cupboard of a key to be asked to get that information, for somebody to already get it via third party is kind of out there. That's not too good. That doesn't even seem all right to how I see that. I can see that the European model is more attempted on the kinks of making sure that those things feel more correct, and in that mind space of getting that effectively done, then the theoretical conclusion of the labels automatically sent and redelivered to like a Google comprehension. So be aware, computer wise and just world wise, that you are, and technology wise, is the main associated that you're walking on this earth, this creation. You're not experiencing your own dwelling to what you think of your ideas as you're compelled to them to the maximum. Absolutely not. If you were, then those parts of how you would compel yourself, even in my own conversation, wouldn't be the Machiavelli affinity of how you had spoke it, because that would be your transgression, or and you would just be the sale of how that would be to not define that as its material. That is that depth of thinking, and it's hardly achieved with all the contingents on that. See, even with all the correct words to say, we hardly get a dive on that language. It'll be a project in re-education. Alright, so I did finally get the PayPal to work on the check, and then I can buy at 10. And it seems like every time I'm talking about what I want to do on here, that I'm continuing, or now I have committed to making sure that it's proxied within the virtual of not having something outside of this, as in this will be generic, so no logins. My dashboards will be to themselves, and then we're doing a real attempt at getting to the second party of technology. So we're gonna this is more of like a poorly made center video of how I spent the night, on how I was rambling, working on Darien's deals, and then looking for friendship. And I was gonna be like, wow, I really think these things, that every time that I equal something to the theoretical of where that exists, that data of where I spoke on how that, whether it was like neuroosmosis or recorded to the conversation of what somebody was intended upon to what a data receiver was saying. I know that sounds all to that, but how the conversation centers and collides in Zed clarity made me feel indifferent about it. Like, I wanted to imagine that there was like a compelling sorority esque kind of thing, because that way, in this time especially, then there's more of a flooring and set benchmark, and that we can, because it's like at the gym, that the goal is every time that I'm trying to extract a social indifference, that I'm looking to get to that epicenter of the pie, to create those definitions, to extract it in a certain way, so that it's like that all the terms within the lines of what's associated to the society at the center is appropriated to the center for everybody to be alright, without creating, a circle and a square, and then somebody creating invariables of what is the reality to augment the expansion of something squared exponentially, is the cause of the numbers that run on that platform. So the pediatric or integrated development environment is like Jurassic Park of what the problems are on, in this case, the Emerald server. Very cool. Very already there, and in this scenario, then it's biome of a person inside of that place for sure. And I totally disagree with the professional actually being respected as a professional, because of the uniqueness of the design, and how that something would explain itself for something that is already done. We got it, and I don't need to hear anything in my junior um, bachelor years or whatever. I can't wait, and I want to see it raised, and then I want it to be like a crisp bed sheet on top of that, and something like $100 Walmart, because if I don't see that it has like the rest on whatever, then it's whatever your wood design is, it's going to be too toy box for me. You don't know how to professionally do something yet, and then within The previous video is pretty accurate, so we're trying to raise the floor. And I hate when I take a step over and it happens to something, but the person that I'm affecting in my subscription list or the registration of what I feel neuro-wise or under that overseer, I'm sure in the jobs, the professions of the persons of who I go into contact to, then the person who gets that information for whatever job is within the 57 of like social and things like that, that those things are considered and not neglected. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to change my class from the knight to the horseman. I was the knight because it was that I chose the beneficiary of not doing something to do that, when some people at my age will be the paladin who is more susceptible at doing things that they did not necessarily want to do for the social, such as tennis or whatever. And then once I was a knight, then it's just I switched to a generic horseman, and then the third on the challenge of law power associated to that, it's gonna have to be challenged with a two, a two ratio of what that is to the ratio being at that more to do that. And even if those things were those, what has been deferred from us is completely those things. This person doesn't get to say, in simple moving average of fusioning these things together, then I don't have to auspicious myself to do my duty in my department. No, that is in one of those cynical ideas of where somebody knows that they have a job and it's become their personal identity. I'm like, wow, if that was my girlfriend, I'd be like, wow, you seriously are living with me and chose to decide to not do your job as your job and are gonna hold this liability on us? Seriously? That's how I feel. Hopefully we get that barring of that standard triangle to reconstruct what is misconstrued as not their property, because it's over compelling our identity to what we defined it, that triangle as the perception of how data is filtered to what we say out loud to even sound right. It seems that the corrections of this kind of software or whatever, or observations, is not at an outreach of creating that standard of what is it like to speak as person? What does it feel like? Do these overlays affect what the standard? Is there a standard? Does somebody put themselves in a state when they say something to say something to put themselves in danger? Does that danger have a definition? Is it scripted on something else as that? Those are the things that we want access to in the challenge of a open source challenge of data, if third party is legal or if it's attempted to stay legal and not follow second party guidelines. That would be great. Well, that would be the imaginative of, hey, I'm not stepping in too far to this, and then I know that there's expected change and the possibility that this has been in it there. Okay. It's whatever. So maybe when we create a task board, or if somebody hears our call to fix something, then it'll automatically be fixed, or that will be re-educated to make that possible. Because else it just really feels like we're a flaming triangle that has a missing wooden crutch on one part and are listening to like swirls in the interior of that triangle that is incompetated towards what who we are, to say that we are not who we are, to theorize something that doesn't hold stature to our identity. A recreation of Darien, pretty much. I would rather be the one gem that I am, and I'm sure that, give it time, and you'll probably make friends at the gym or whatever, and learning to do things in order, uncompelled, and not add attrition to our intent has made me feel like how I do things is very appropriate, and that it is like a law firm to how I feel that I write things, script it in reverse conversations. So it can always be said. The deal is still open. I wouldn't admit that. And yes, it is like 300 a month and not even committed to the 20K, but I want to wait 2 years to do a commitment at just a connect, because of this kind of detriment to do that. So I'm creating a ceiling volume uh, anti-alias, sort of, so that it's more of the choices, it's more likely to be upwards by that time and more to what we want. So when we get into political use, utilized even in a minimal way, which I did challenge as the maximum way, as in, if, like, I'm not gonna go for the thing that says that it's against myself, but that I chose to do the dual diagnostics to say something for what was worst against myself, that I was not the beneficiary. The idea of creating the volume ceiling creates it so that when I'm speaking, the more likely thing that I'm going to be associated to in the scramble of where the equal of the sourcing of how information is found in the mind is found what is at the attention span of what is around. And what will be around will be the things that are already written down, calculated to be likely at that beneficiary. I mean, it's not an expensive house, so it's like if we got the set on any of these things, but if I hear something that's like, hey, I did something in advertisement to feel that somebody was trying to compel somebody to do what was worse for themselves, then eventually, as a right hand man, I'm going to try to figure it out. Okay, if I find somebody who exists as a practicality of what they're not saying that they're doing, then that's like what is annoying. Else, right now, I just don't want to embarrass myself in front of girls, is how I feel. And I want a sharp black and white figure of who I am. And I don't really care to see that now. And I see these two depictions of two different people. One that observes something and don't know what's good for anybody and just creates everything that's worse because their emotions are more intrepid to what they don't want to do. And that kind of poison, data wise, is really affecting my virtual sorority. I say for that own person, signaturing your reason of existence and where you're going to be to where that doesn't matter, for me it was a year. So it would have been way different if I was on the stack of the 40, and then I would have never had to ever calculate to be negative on an intended person giving me negative results. Not committed to an ASIC minor. The only thing that I ever committed to was like cloud mining, which doesn't have a security deposit box. So I'm attempting to get that back, and then I said I'm for the amount unexplained that I expect that person to deter that. So then we have, and this is a personal thing, especially how you depict it as the abstraction of like how your licensure, that Steinbeth was going to help me with the claim 87732466764 on HO-111022812 or HO-107712237. And this is my segment, so I don't really have to defend that I am a real body and department. So in any, like, in that, so speaking on the behalf of Failure Family, I definitely have to protect myself, and in that business center have to miniaturize a law firm as well, because in the contrast of not respecting business to business, that's just me having to do that. I can understand if it's like your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, but I'm just seeing these weird ratios of age relationships where somebody doesn't feel associated to doing their job. So yes, why if I say forward to the challenge, it doesn't mean wow, extract my money to create this identity of yourself, to create the correct pre-measure from stolen money for whoever has it. You know, pretend $2,000 fiat transferred for people to pretend to be somebody else. That's enough. And then I'll talk to Bestein and then put that on the signature that no, I'm still my department. So if a department was on the defense of the Ruby, which I'll go with since we're going with the Gate Guardian story, that the well, it really says that nobody watches my videos. So in the challenge of the time that somebody would say that, it would be so minimal according to that that would be my defense if somebody said that. But the number was 517-679-5567 for Bestein. And I'm hoping that it would only be associated and defended to somebody doing that. But I would rather have help getting something done and making sure that's finalized. Because see these three stripes of where I'm saying something, where it's the line of the border of what I can say, where I'm saying it past to do that, where those things are associated, color associated to what is preferred, and where that infers on real values in and for against what I'm doing is where I don't want that collagen. Then I know it. I know it. I'm not gonna ever excuse myself for letting a society not justify why somebody was there, and that the actual command of what somebody batteried onto somebody did not make sense in a filter of making sense to do that. And I will be on the defense of that for more than just myself. Is this annoying? So yeah, you protect me on my amount for something where you claim to be worth the law of the viewpoint of something like that, or whatever, like a judge being. I want our business cleared and the intent of heat transfer. A lot of this will be brought into how we'll use elementals, or I don't really understand, like, I feel like paganism is more into the dark teal of that rather than the all possibility. Let's just go with like an elemental dynamic syner, and I'm more of a dynamic player, not a synergistic player. Who knows? It's encrypted of the antibodies of the neurodes, as far as I can tell, what is able to be thought of. That sounds so nerd, and I would never say it like that, but I'm I don't know. That was a good video. Thanks for the video. It's like, I got nothing against you. It's just I don't want this to be name for name. This is about something that I could not say any other way, and I would not want to ever think that anything like this would ever happen. And when our people ever is the value of the, like, later on for people segment cut on how people bought ASIC miners and never got them. I really do think that it is a volume service attempt at the volume of doing that in a not correct business, let's say. That it is the server based or whatever. It's just, it's so strange that the value of the ASIC miner is that. So how is it the same when it's not the same return on that? And it just don't really seem right to me. What the multiples or the criticals is the times of what the cost is, which I'm gonna bring up because Donaldson Brown was the inventor of return on investments, which has been discriminated upon, a real thing that you've discriminated upon. It's pretty bad. It's like stealing the birthday song of having ROI be return of investment and not based on the investment and what that is kind of already platformed. Anyways, after that mess, I'm not really messing with that. I've categorized it as a sapphire business and that it has some kind of service loophole in it. And yeah, that's pretty much all of that. I didn't really get associated to that. And yeah, we will see. I'm sure that's not a good explanation for a lot of people. I just found myself being associated to dirt and grass and recording anybody attempting to say bankruptcy. Look at you, Munchkin. We'll work on getting your sorority, and then we're gonna create, whether it's this myself or this clear observation and meditation, that that colored light, if you had it and it lit up your area like this, then it's reminiscent of that kind of energy to what deters on some of the other things. Like, your C sharp is really high. The D server you're working on is a great idea. And a lot of these things are good and need to be extracted professionally, I think. I think these are great random classes, and they'll be put into series way better than you could, once it's actually succeeded on, that are great. There's every perspective to every person's life is completely, not completely, but in certain situations, love or whatever, indicated even still on the person. So every person experiencing their experience is really in that, unless they're very daydreamed into thinking otherwise. I want to spend some time looking at the cards, so we're going to do that. I want to show some of the ones. I all right. Is there any other questions? I'm a believer in in the neuro exchange of how when you think something to somebody that it's thought to that there's a swap right there and that I can read that and that you can read that. That's my belief. So that sounds kind of nerdy. But what do you think and what do you want to ask or do? Totally, I can see on the Python class that it's definitely not something that well I it's just I don't know how somebody would have the neuro adapter, so I have to look into the that. Well, I'm very young, not very young, but the infancy of the structure of my center of what I said, even though I probably should have said something, but I'm just very tempted to continue talking. Let's see. So great. Mattress risen, color light, uh, horseman class, attempting to have the Dark Knight on the horse that I had fixed, that I like my rusty horse, and that I feel that I have a car technician Roman 2 on my ability to get that. I have at least a yellow understanding of score of car fixing. So being able to change your oil and stuff, that's green. Being able to switch out and replace the parts that are attached to the engine and hosing and knowing that, that's yellow. Being able to completely do everything, that's red. Alright, cut. And I'm trying to cut the line of what it feels like, or I failed at that. I was just trying to make it seem like I was focusing on the next thing because I am the annoying on the board. Some of my favorite cards, a new one that I'm seeing. So if we look at Pellicor Mercenary, we can see, I want to show, or it's lore, is it lore? Cards, stats. So on the stats, you can see what a 10 level is created by having 400 of this card, which is at 1 cent. So $1 we can start using the heal flying evasion tactic right there. So from 8 to 9 to 3, that's pretty good. And then the $1.51 is really good right here. 10 HP, 3 speed, and then 150 for 150 card right there. Keep in mind if you're a collector that the card don't have diffusion. You could sell the card. Well, you could sell the card if somebody bought it, and then defuse it to buy it if it was that. If for some reason that's how it was, and that's how I feel. So not really a total loss. Or as another one, I for what I stacked, I did the Venari Seedsmith, and I bought 10k of the the one that is a token. So then I switch that. And I think that I made $500 in transactional errors, and I account myself for making those personal errors, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the barring line of what is not working out, and that I will just pass it on to who's going to create the phaser of making that happen, if they want to stay around here and not be dawdling. If you cared about protecting the law, then you would probably get that money, because you're like, why is this not a great definition for the hinge on what that means to the actual application, to being unassociated to the easiest one. I believe if you return with that success, you can be Naruto. Goblin psychic metaphoring. I'm not so negative. I did not get it. Okay. I mean, if I don't get it at this point, then by that time of creating that definition, you really have not defined this pseudo of not being good for anybody. Okay. Should have said the other number for the M of U. Not that I would want to say that. Once everything is all situated and facts, then what's associated to intending to do something will be gone, and that's kind of not what I would expect, but that's what somebody is trying to place to what I expect. Okay. I'm not humoring any scripts and the in-between until that. And for the 51 room as the administration room as in my room, that I don't really see that as what I like. Okay. I leave that to the 56 meeting room. The other ones are really cool. If you had to pick one and you were part of my neuro circle, my spiritual circle, which one do you want to look at? Dragon's so expensive, and I figured somebody who is thinking that they're heavily committed into what this was, that they'd be more interested in this one. Because look, 2 cents to get the upgrades on this one. Like, this is not the most attractive one to look at, the balance tree of this. But if you never played this game, then play it. It's a cool game. It's well, yeah. That's a bit tough to start with that one. I like Earth style, lifestyle, 10%ers over here. I don't like the color. I know that water is easily the best adjusted one for, what was that? Maybe mine is underestimated too. So this is how much you'll get random amount of what the Warhammer of how many cards you can have in play, and then the start of the chain is the melee goes into front, and then this one targets center, and it's to the center of the orbit, like the for like the swirl to the priority of the turn, and whatever the like maybe the first turn, second turn to that, and then it starts the order of the countdown with the speed that has these things activate, and then the magic goes straight to the health, and then else the first melee or range target attack has to go, it goes across the remainder of the armor. Once the health of the hearts are gone, then it is destroyed. Sapphire is the server is like when you get into it and you have a good steady hand, then you get this one. Fire. This one is kind of cool. I like her style though. This is the one I know, the card slot. The Knifer on the Thorn of possibly getting the Planeswalker Mylic, or in this, is it called Summoner? Well, there's one that gives everything Thorn, and Thorn does 2 damage to that, so running the train on something like this. I have my favorite place. One of the commons is that I do Mirror-like Spider. I do this one, and that sometimes can win me the game as long as I have a wood nymph or a whatever, like I think if I ever get this one, that the 2 damage to the counter of having a spiky Mylic, so 13 to, well, 20, getting a win on 20 for that's kind of ridiculous. I say get this one, Pelacor, to that on the defense, even though that I see the pariah of taunt of all any targets have to hit this if they do, because some of the other ones do other abilities that make other things susceptible, like sneak attack, opportunity, and some other stuff. Good night to all my virtual and anonymous friends and enemies. Felt this was a good video, and I love still art. It don't hurt to look at. Bought a refrigerator, and then it was super small, so I gotta, well, I hate talking about anything volume wise, because it seems like I got myself in a stickler of that. I was like, that I was this, and that no, I'm not this, and then I'm not compelled to see you as something else. It don't really make sense. Every time I talk, it feels that way. If you were to be given your own time to speak, well, I mean, in your own existence, then would you feel any different? I think it's possibly Salmonella E, maybe? I went to a gym. I'm sure that people juice on eggs all the time, especially for it seeming that that is a thing, and for that being cheap. Thank you. I like you too. I'll talk to these note cards all night until I figure. am putting in an application for a business license, and it's so like it's so preschool. It's like you on the atmosphere of that. My bad. Your registration, you put it in, you ask, and then you wait. Exactly like I'm having to do for this other thing. I'm gonna get you a coach, or you can talk to the center of something, and then they'll be like, hey, if you felt almost this way and then you said that, then you should be able to disintegrate enough what you say to do something that you still have your style, and that you get to keep that, and your art isn't taken away from you. If you were to say that I counted something, whatever that is, when I was just talking to myself, then I would question what you were talking about. You're being a meanie, so you can go play your card game by yourself in virtual. I look at these cards like I play Arc 5 in the virtual life. And I don't even consider life that. It's more of a technocracy of a database on my ID. Someone young figuring out how to get their platform set. I'm not young. I'm 25 years old. Maybe my tree is young. It feels young. Maybe. We're in trouble. We have this stringent problem where we fail to not stop talking. I keep asking, did I get a ununanimous execution of the inconsideration of the third party of my human being? I'm not even gonna try that. I'm just gonna try to make a friend in this, in some time of what I'm doing to create some sort of something. This other Darien, and how there's a print screen of like how I don't want to see something on the CNA education that I did not get, and how that's acceptable. It's like we were looking how that is a banister of how I would be treated in real time. Is kind of where we're looking at what is that, why is that acceptable, why was that passed, why did you wait for a response, and why are you like that? It's not just technology. If somebody knew how to create the death wall on the barracks of physics and technology, and created the priorities, and that's one thing. Okay. It's more like the person who put the Apple apps next to each other is a billionaire. Okay. So we see these and we're like, well, what's a better myth? It's like pick up 52 of how all these ideas are there, and that we're taking those branches to do that. I'm mad about it, and then I see myself that once I establish a solid friendship with somebody who has the set flooring of what I expect, and that like it's just like brothers and sisters helping and not too connected, of how it's equally benefited that our life is gonna be better, because then it's sort of talking about, and then what I say gets traction with myself. So alright, good night. Thank you for watching this new version. I swear, later on in the Angela Brown of me doing something, that I will actually be doing it to depict something, and I will not be on the escape of the outer shell of what I intend on doing. And that the... Yes. Exactly. Okay. Thank you for watching. Now, tomorrow we're gonna try to keep ourselves retained in ourselves, and yes, proud. See you tomorrow. Bye. Thank you. Alright.